Good evening and welcome to our first annual Veterans Day program here at North Lakes Academy. I'm so excited to have all of you here. My name is Jenny Dale. I'm the director of music here at NLA Upper School. And, I was recently asked, why should we have a Veterans Day program? And I was thinking about that and I thought, veterans are such a huge part of my life. They've been such a huge part of my childhood. I can't imagine Veterans Day coming without taking time to honor those men and women who have served, sacrificed, and have given so much so that we can have our liberties, our freedoms. And I just was thinking, yeah, we just have to. That's why we do it. I'm so excited to have this opportunity with our students here at NLA. They've had an amazing time preparing for this. There's a couple of people that I want to really make sure that I thank. First, I want to thank the band and choir parents and guardians. They helped supply some refreshments that we're going to have after the program. They helped supply those. They're helping with setup. My students from the other groups are helping with some of that setup as well. And a super big thank you to Rob Anderson, NLA parent. He has graciously spent time practicing to accompany the choir, and I'm very excited to have him with us. And finally, I want to really thank my colleague, Mr. Stewart. He has been instrumental in helping get this program organized, and I kind of feel like I was the idea person and he's the detail guy. So, which is great. I love it. So anyway, I'm going to pass it over to him now, but I'm so happy that you guys are here this evening.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christopher Stewart. I'm a social studies teacher here at the Upper School. I'm honored to have the privilege to partner with Miss Dale and our talented musicians to add to the tone of patriotism and reverence this evening. I am personally deeply passionate about the stories of veterans and their legacies for many reasons, but my curiosity was piqued, as I'm sure it was for many of you, when I learned about the history of service in my own family. But critically, Veterans Day is defined by recognizing the contributions also of those who are still with us today. So in that spirit of gratitude, could I please have all service members, past and present, stand and be recognized? I also would like to take a brief moment to offer my deepest sense of thanks to the American Legion Post and the VFW Post here in Forest Lake. They also have been instrumental in organizing this and ensuring that we do things the right way, according to veterans. So let's give them another round of applause. And now I'll ask that you all stand and face our nation's flag for the playing of our national anthem.
99 years ago, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month on a rail car in northern France, the armistice to halt the First World War was signed. This day, November 11th, 1918, would serve as a symbolic inspiration for Veterans Day when it was officially recognized as a federal holiday in 1938, and renamed from Armistice Day in 1954 by President Eisenhower. But this agreement, nor the day we recognize this evening, could bring an end to all wars.
In our history as a nation, nearly 42 million men and women have served in defense of our liberty and values in 13 wars and in hundreds of peripheral conflicts. Today, it is estimated that there are more than 23 million living veterans who have served in times of war or peace. This means that there are about 7% of all current American citizens have served in the United States military. We set aside this evening to honor all of those who have made this honorable choice.
While Veterans Day takes time to remember these brave Americans of all creeds for their sacrifice for our collective good, it comes with a distinct responsibility for us as citizens. The contributions of those willing to serve deserve more than one day a year, so take time to share a brief moment of human connection with a veteran. Reach out. Ask questions. While their stories are often difficult to remember and oftentimes even more emotional to tell, they are inspirational.
Beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of rain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot dreams that seeds beyond the years. Thy alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.
In December of 2016, I was honored by the National History Day program to mentor a North Lakes Academy senior student, Evan Dufresne, in a year-long journey as part of the Normandy Sacrifice for Freedom Albert H. Small Student and Teacher Institute. This program granted Evan and I, as well as 14 other student and teacher teams from all different states, the opportunity to grapple with tough questions about military service, sacrifice, and how to tell the story of the millions of voices silenced by armed conflict. As a group, we investigated the lives of these silent heroes in the context of World War II, learned from prestigious scholars in Washington, D.C., and visited the National Archives. In the final phase of this program, we traveled to Normandy, France, where Evan and I would tell for the first time the singular legacy of a man who gave his life in the weeks following the D-Day invasion in 1944. He would like to share with you this evening that emotional eulogy that he authored.
Private William John Otto Bremer wasn't like most soldiers. He never planned on being in the military. He thought he'd never even have to be. All Private Bremer ever truly cared about was being at home with his beloved family and his friends. But even as he felt he was being taken away from the one thing he truly loved, Private Bremer answered the call of duty with the understanding that he must serve to protect what he cared for most. This story has become a model for myself and my own aspirations for the United States military. Private Bremer, from the days of his childhood, was put into difficult situations to overcome. When he was just 6 years old, his sister Marie and mother Sophia passed away. The family was broken up and separated, with Private Bremer sent away to live with the relatives of his father, Charles. When Private Bremer was a teenager, he attended Cretan High School, a prestigious Catholic boarding school and military academy. Private Bremer was a member of the school's debate team and student council until his junior year in 1930. Although he claimed he graduated high school, it was at this time he decided to quit school to live with and help his sister Henrietta to give financial support amongst the Great Depression. Will Bremer persevered. In his 20s and 30s, Private Bremer became somewhat of a wild card. He liked to dress like a gangster, enjoyed drinking, and occasionally cheated in games of cribbage to earn extra money amongst his pals. His marked deck would later travel with him to England. He even had a small run-in with the law that would prevent him from being drafted until 1943. However, in 1938, Bill's life found a new focus, his beloved wife, Norma. Bill reported to Fort Snelling in September of 1943 with mixed emotions, determined to excel, but disillusioned by the war effort that took him away from his wife. In the letters exchanged with those back home nearly every day despite his duties, his anxiousness to return home to her was clear. Later he would say, "You'll never be able to realize how welcome those letters were. I see now what is meant by the expression, as welcome as a letter from home." The Bremers persevered. Sent to Camp Fannin, Texas for basic training at the Infantry Replacement Training Center with the 14th Training Regiment in October, Private Bremer earned many leadership roles. In his letters to his wife Norma, he spoke of his favorite things to do, particularly spending time on the shooting ranges. He was always at the top of the list for the best shooters and took the best care of his M1 carbine rifle. So much so, he was even asked to loan it out to many of the officers in his regiment, and was given the job of training newcomers of a wide range of rank how to shoot. He was given the title of squad leader and acting corporal, but Private Bremer questioned the righteousness of the war's sacrifices and missed home terribly. Private Bremer persevered. In the second week of March 1944, Bill's spirits were lifted. He returned home for 8 days before embarking for the East Coast, Fort George G. Meade in Maryland, his final training before going overseas. After writing home for months about how much he wanted to see Norma, it was the break he needed to continue doing his duty effectively. On April 20th, 1944, he wrote from southern England, having been assigned to A Company, 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry Regiment of the 4th Infantry Division. Bremer told his wife, "It is funny what a person can put up with as long as there is something to look forward to in the future. I'll always have you and the home still ahead of me. I have spirit and faith in that future." As the spring of 1944 progressed and the plans for the invasion of Normandy emerged, Private Bremer continued his training and prepared for whatever role he would be placed in. Private Bremer would be called upon mid-June as a replacement, sent in to aid the 8th Regiment, who had lost 152 men since D-Day, according to his periodic reports. Then the 4th Infantry Division made its drive northwest to Cherbourg, a port city critical to resupplying the Allies and continuing the push into France. Private Bremer believed that again he would persevere. On the 24th of June, 1944, as Allied forces pushed closer to La Glacière, They were met with a heavy and deadly defense from the Germans. Using trenches, the Germans were able to hold a strong front against the Allies, preventing the 8th Regiment's advance. Colonel James S. Rodwell, commander of the 8th Infantry, explained in his after-action report the following. The average 8th Infantry foot slogger, when he peered out of his foxhole, his disgust was profound. His body revolted at the thought of the increasing pace and the campaign and tenacity of the enemy. His mind was sick at the sight and smell of blood and death mingled with the damp earth about him. Yet his fighting spirit and sense of duty drove him on. Despite the men around him being killed and likely witnessing the death of his battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Conrad Simmons, to artillery fire, Private Bremer persevered. On the 25th of June, 1944, small groups of men were sent out to the borders of Sharpsburg with an attempt to locate any pockets of German resistance. Although no German occupation were reported, Private Bremer and 4 other men were reported missing. Private Bremer was found with a bullet wound to the back the very next day. Letters from Norma's parents continued to ask of his well-being, but it wasn't until late July that Norma would discover that her husband was missing in action. Then, on August 15th, 1944, Norma's 29th birthday, news reached Minnesota that Private Bremer had made the ultimate sacrifice. She was broken, and condolences from friends and relatives and the personal reflections of Norma, however, illustrated how Bill's legacy would persevere. Private William John Otto Bremer, your story has permitted us to put the years of anguish your wife felt many decades ago, and the shadow you left on their lives for 60 years. Reading the words within your 190 letters your family provided helped us to understand who you were as a person and to better tell your story. It has brought her family and mine together. It has encouraged the 30 of us to come together on these hallowed grounds. For the rest of your life, I will wear your dog tags and your memorial bracelet so that never again you will be forgotten. That is a promise, my friend. And in the words of your last letter sent to Norma, good night for now.
My country, 'tis of thee,
Day calls us to remember the individuality of service members. Despite their significance collectively in the greater paradigm of history, when extracted from the broader context, their stories are lacking in independent significance. So today, let us renew our commitment to our veterans, to remember their sacrifices by reading their old letters, digging out their artifacts, sharing their stories, and recalling their names.
A name in a display case. Lieutenant Thomas Robert Krause was active for 3 years during World War II. He was an outstanding athlete during high school and college, but put it all aside to join the Navy Reserves stationed in the South Pacific. His picture is still on display at the University of Jamestown in North Dakota. Lieutenant Krause survived the war and returned home, becoming a college athletics coach. So many veterans have promising futures, but they are driven to serve for the country in order to experience history firsthand.
A name on a family photograph. Private Malo S. Paulson served in the Korean War for its entire duration as an electrical engineer in the 65th Engineers Battalion. Not only did he experience the atrocities that war could manifest, he worked tirelessly to restore electricity to those in need and aid our troops in pushing the tide in battle. It is photographs like these that help us to capture brief moments in the experience of veterans. Over time, their details fade, but sharing their stories offers an untapped array of knowledge that truly needs to be shared.
A name in a personal journal. Signalman First Class Roman Paul Kroll served on the USS Keokuk during World War II. He shared his story with his family through journals and wrote about his sleepless nights, D-Day, the explosions, the fires, the people who didn't survive, the crashed planes, and his near-death experiences. He survived and fought for me, for my family, and for our country. His story allows us to see through the eyes of our veterans.
A name and a family story. Gunner's mate, 3rd Class Chuck Anzoli, served aboard the USS Landing Ship Tank 900, beginning in July of 1942 until the end of the war, earning 1 battle star. The LST 900 saved multiple wounded soldiers, rescuing them from the brutality of war. He survived the war and lived until 1997. His legacy lives on through the stories he shared with his family about his experiences in combat, and it resonates today.
A name on a Navy muster roll. Motor Machinist Mate 3rd Class Jerome Daniel Saunders served on the LCT 583, which saw some action on June of 1944 near Omaha Beach, and later on the LST 1074. These are just scraps of information, which encourages me to dig deeper for what else Jerome Daniel Saunders may have encountered during World War II. Even the smallest acts can change the course of warfare. All stories should be told.
A name on a Navy Certificate of Presence. Lieutenant Wallace F. Gustafson, who witnessed the Japanese surrender aboard the USS Missouri in 1945 with the 33rd Division of the Navy, personally shaking the hand of General Douglas MacArthur. It symbolizes my veteran's experience, which he recounted to me with fascinating detail. His story made me realize and develop a deeper passion and interest with the stories and experiences of veterans and service members. His stories and artifacts can serve as a reminder to all of us how important honoring veterans really is.
A name on an honorable discharge. Seaman First Class Thomas Doran Downey served as an ambulance driver on the Russell Islands in the South Pacific. He was stationed there from November of 1943 to the end of World War II. During this time, he transported soldiers to one of the 4 hospitals located on the islands. After a soldier is honorably discharged, they re-enter society as fathers, grandfathers, and great-grandfathers, serving their families, communities, and often their fellow veterans.
A name on a Purple Heart. 5th grade technician Kenneth Newton Myers served in World War II from 1941 to 1945. He was stationed in Tunisia as part of the North African campaign when he was hit by shrapnel from a German bomb. He was awarded a Purple Heart for the wounds he took for his country. Military citations tell us the stories and brave acts of our servicemen and give us physical representations of their valor.
A name on a city memorial. Technician 4th grade Anthony James Heisler joined the United States Army at the age of 25. Serving in the 743rd Tank Battalion, marked as missing in action, Heisler was presumed dead on July 26, 1944, but his remains were never found. For this reason, his name is listed on the tablets of the missing at the Normandy American Cemetery in France. Also on the Veterans Monument, Lakeside Memorial Park here in Forest Lake, memorials like this permit us, both family and community members, to continue to recognize the fallen.
A name on an in memoriam. Major Robert R. Riesgraf served in the United States Army for 22 years and was part of the 125th Evacuation Hospital in World War II. Riesgraf passed away in May of 2016, but this message from his daughter appeared as part of the 2007 dedication of the Minnesota World War II Memorial at the state capitol. Documenting these specific stories helps us to remember that the experience of veterans of all wars are singular, yet equally important.
A name on a family heirloom. Petty Officer, First Class Malin Van Remick served on the LST 469 off the east coast of Australia in 1942 and lost his life when his ship was torpedoed in 1943. In spite of his death, he influenced his younger brother, Jerome, to join the Navy, and his legacy lives on through his treasured hunting rifle. To all veterans that lost their lives in combat, their inherited artifacts are valued and used to tell their stories of bravery.
A name on a foreign headstone. Private First Class Lester Arthur Olson served from the 357th Infantry, 90th Division during the Second World War. He was killed in action in northern France on January 12, 1945. He earned a Bronze Star for his bravery and is buried at the Luxembourg American Memorial Cemetery, Block H, Row 9, Grave 61. He did not die for loot, for land, or for conquest. He died for a land he'd never known, for a people whom he'd never meet. His grave is a marker of Americans' enduring commitment to the defense of freedom at home as well as abroad.
Fight our country's battles liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again, and thank you, veterans.